Okay, so today we start the AC analysis of bipolar transistor circuits. This will go on for at least 2 lectures, maybe 3 also. It's somewhat involved but extremely important. So last time we had designed this circuit, which was the self-bias circuit, and we had designed it to carry a 1 milliampere collector current uh, with the condition that as beta varied from 50 to 200, the collector current would not vary by more than 10%. So now we'll use this circuit as an amplifier and learn how to apply an input signal to it, and then learn how to analyze its behavior as an amplifier. The second part we'll do next lecture, not this lecture. Before we start, let's quickly review what signals are and where they come from. So signals come from many different sources, and for our purposes what we are looking at is real life signals being converted to electrical signals, and the electrical signal will then be fed to an amplifier to get amplified and processed further. So here are possible sources, some of the sources from where, or sensors I should say, from where signals are received. So a microphone would convert an audio to electrical, a thermocouple will convert a temperature difference to an electrical signal, acceleration, speed, a piezoelectric sensor converts pressure to an electrical signal, photodiodes light to electrical signal, ultrasound waves to electrical signal, antennas. This is a whole field, of course, because antennas are found in all communication systems from radio, TV, satellite, mobile phones, and receiving signals from outer space of all types. So antennas is a very huge it's a field, and it provides a very wide variety of signals. Also, signals can be originally electric signals. For example, body signals from humans or animals, from the heart, brain, muscles, etc. Once in electrical form, signals will be either voltages or currents, and therefore they can, wherever they are coming from, once they are converted by the sensor, the output of the sensor can be represented by a Thevenin or Norton's equivalent network, assuming that it is linear. If it is not linear, one typically makes an assumption of linearity and converts them. For our purposes this semester, mostly we will discuss voltage signals, and therefore our signal, the signal that we will be looking at, would be represented largely by a Thevenin's equivalent, so a voltage source in series with a resistance. We will typically call it Vs, S for signal, and Rs. For all these sensors we looked at, the source resistance can vary from 10 ohms to many mega ohms. The signal itself that is received from all these sensors can vary in amplitude from picovolts to millivolts. Frequency can be a few hertz to many gigahertz. This is of course a very wide range. For this course, we will restrict ourselves and assume that our input signal is a few millivolts, 1 millivolt, 10 millivolt, like that. The frequency is hertz to maybe tens or hundreds of kilohertz, and the source resistance will be a few ohms to a few kilo ohms. Anything outside this range would be very specialized circuits, and they are usually postgraduate level course material. Okay. We will also assume our signal source to be sinusoidal. Why sinusoidal? Actually, a sinusoid by itself does not carry any information. A signal carries information, but a sinusoidal does not carry any information. You probably already know this from the signals and systems course. But sinusoids, because of Fourier transforms, can form the basis for representing any time varying signal. So by using a sinusoid, we are not really losing any generality, because just applying Fourier transform will enable us to convert any signal to a bunch of sinusoids. Importantly, sinusoids enable us to analyze circuits, because we have seen briefly Bode plots. Bode plots are an important way of characterizing the behavior of circuits. And unless we understand the behavior of a circuit, we would not know how and when and what for what purposes we could use a particular circuit. So these are all the reasons we'll assume the source to be sinusoid. Okay, so let's start. Let's assume that to begin with, we'll assume that our signal source is ideal. Ideal in the sense that it doesn't have any resistance. The Thevenin's resistance is 0, and let's assume some amplitude, let's say 10 millivolts. So we'll say, okay, this is our signal source. This is the circuit. This is our amplifier. This is our signal source. Now we want to connect the signal source to the amplifier, so that when this is applied as an input to the amplifier, at the output of the amplifier, we'll get some amplified version of Vs, because we are saying Vs is small, we want to amplify it. So the first question, of course, is where do we connect Vs to in this circuit? We have Vs, we have the circuit, where do we connect it? Now, given that we know that in a bipolar transistor, the collector and emitter currents are amplified versions of the base current, it would intuitively make sense that we connect the input to the base and take the output at the collector or emitter, and hopefully that will work. Right now, let us assume that, and so let's connect the input to the base. So here is our circuit, and we connect the input to the base of the amplifier. Alright, so let us see. So what I did is, I said, okay, I have this circuit. I could of course sit and analyze this first, but I said, let me put this in SPICE and see what happens. So here is what I did. So here is the same circuit in SPICE, same resistance values. Let's just go back. So 6, 3.3, 52, 91, 12 volts. Which is what here, 6, 3.3 and 52, 91. Alright. Then I did a DC simulation, a dot op, just to find the voltages and currents at all nodes. This is just DC analysis. I have not yet connected the signal source. So I simulated, and these are the values I got. Base voltage 4.3 volts. You recall last time we had analyzed this circuit for beta varying from 50 to 200. And VB was varying around, we had nominally a 4 volt beta. This is 4.3, which is okay. V is 3.6, 5.5. We had designed for VC to be 6 volts. Close enough. IC 1 milliamp. Close enough. Actually, the beauty of this circuit, I should mention, is that once you design this, you can put practically any transistor here and the circuit would work. And it will bias itself properly because of that self-bias principle. As long as a beta is the reason it works is because the beta of almost all transistors one generally encounters commercially have a beta in the range of 50 to 200. So I just randomly picked something and used it. It turned out that this transistor has a beta of 300, slightly larger. That's why these numbers are slightly different, but for our purposes they are good enough. So okay, so this DC is done. So then I connected the AC source. I put a sinusoid of 10 millivolt amplitude and a reasonable frequency 1 kilohertz. I connected it, and then I did, because this is a time varying signal, I did a transient simulation. 1 kilohertz means a time period of 1 millisecond. So I did it for 2 milliseconds. And then I simulated and I looked at the results. I looked at the collector voltage and the emitter voltage. And oh gosh. So that was a startled pause. The collector voltage is 12 volts and the emitter voltage is 0 volts. This is certainly not what I expected. So I was startled. Maybe. I was strange. So what happened? What went wrong? If the collector voltage is 12 volts, something went wrong. So what does one do when one finds that the simulation gives results that one did not expect? What one does and one must do, and I emphasize this, is that in order to try and make sense of the simulation results, one must look at all the different voltages and currents in the circuit and try to understand what is going on. This is very similar to debugging a code. When you have a code that doesn't work, what you do is you look at various voltages, I'm sorry, not voltages, you see how the various variables are behaving. You put some print commands in the middle of the code to see what is going on. So I plotted the collector and base currents, both are 0. Collector current, base current, both are 0. Doesn't make any sense. Then I looked at the base voltage. Base voltage was a sine, looks like a beautiful sinusoid, 10 millivolts. To go back to the circuit. Here is the circuit. The base voltage is 10 millivolts. Of course it should be, because I have connected a voltage source of 10 millivolts. But if I connect a voltage source of 10 millivolts to the base, then what happens to the base emitter junction? There is no 0.7 volts or 700 millivolts that is required for the transistor to be on. I'm forcing a 0.01 volt here, so the transistor turned off. It turned off, no currents flowing, collector voltage to 12 volts because no current here, emitter voltage to 0 volts because no current here. So that is what happened. So that is what happened here, 0, 10 volts, I have VB equal to Vs. So basically this did not work. I wanted VB to be 4 volts, that was beautifully designed last time, and now suddenly the 4 volts has become 10 millivolts because I actually connected 10 millivolts here. So it doesn't work. So now we are back to the original question. Well, where do we connect Vs? We want to connect Vs so that this circuit works as an amplifier. The answer actually is simple, but it also very deep. We'll go through this quickly. You think about it for a long time and see and make sense of it. The answer to our puzzle is to put a capacitor between the signal source and VB. It's just simple, but it is very deep. The circuit behavior of this is very deep. This, by the way, is called AC coupling. That is just a term that is used. Given this, now let us see if we can find the voltage here. How do we find this voltage? By the way, before I go there, I want to establish this convention of various variables. So small v capital B is the symbol I will use for a total voltage at any node. So the total voltage at any node is small v capital B. Capital V capital B is a DC value. Small v small b is the AC value. Alright, so this is a convention we'll use. So at any node, once we have a DC source and an AC source, any current or voltage will have a DC value and an AC value. And the way we'll represent them is by this convention. Okay, so with this, let us see if we can find what the value of VB is in this circuit. Okay, so the way we do this is we'll use superposition. So we'll say, well, so in this circuit, we had already solved this for a DC of 10 microamps. So this is from last lecture. So you go back and look. 1 milliamp here, beta of 100. So the base current is 10 microamps. So what we do is we'll just take this part of the circuit. We'll say a current of 10 microamps is flowing. 91K, 52K, 12 volts, AC source and a capacitor. Then we apply superposition. So we'll say we'll find the VB only due to 12 volts. Then we'll find the VB only due to Vs, and then we'll sum the two. So first we'll remove Vs. So we'll short this to ground. Once we short this to ground, for the DC, for only the plus 12 volts, the capacitor acts as an open circuit. So in fact we are back to the original circuit, and that original circuit we are already solved. So we know that this voltage was 4 volts. So I have just written here 4 volts only due to the plus 12 volts. So this is a DC, capital V, capital B. Only due to Vs, what is the VB? Now here is what, as I had said, we'll assume that C is large. Or we'll not assume, we'll put a very large C. And large would be such that the magnitude of the impedance of C, which is of course the impedance is 1 over j omega C and its magnitude is 1 over omega C. We'll design the value of C such that 1 over omega C is very small at omega. What is omega? Omega is a frequency of Vs. We are assuming that Vs is a sinusoid. It has some frequency omega which will be determined by the signal that we are looking at. Audio, temperature, whatever, body signal. That omega will be determined from there. Given that we know omega for a particular application, we'll choose a value of C so that 1 over omega C is very small. Let us say, for the sake of example, that we choose C such that 1 over omega C is, say, 0.1 ohm. 0.1 ohm. Alright, 0.1 ohm here. This is 91,000 ohms. 52,000 ohms. So we say practically C is a short circuit, very, very small resistance. So short circuit at omega. At omega. Therefore, for Vs, when only Vs is applied, C acts as a short circuit. Therefore, we can say that VB is approximately equal to Vs. This is a very small impedance, so the difference between Vs and VB is very small. We will say they are approximately equal. So due to Vs, we get VB equal to Vs. Then we apply superposition. So we get a total VB, small v capital B is equal to the VB due to the 12 volts and the Vs due to the AC. So 4 volts plus Vs. Now this is exactly what we wanted. We wanted the circuit to have a 4 volt present there so that the transistor stays in the active mode, and then we want to apply a small AC signal on top of it and we want to amplify that signal. Therefore, we've achieved our purpose. We have got an input to the amplifier that is a sum of the DC and the AC. Now note, and I was a little bit sneaky here, that when we did so let me go back, the superposition, I deliberately did not draw the transistor because the transistor of course is a highly nonlinear element, and somebody would question how can you apply superposition to a nonlinear circuit. Of course you can't, but if you assume that this current is just a 10 microamp current source, then we can apply superposition to this circuit, and that is good enough for our purposes, and that is why I did not draw the transistor. So the result is true that this is VB is equal to 4 volts plus Vs because it is unaffected by what is happening to the right of this circuit. Alright, a little more about the coupling. So as I said, when you put a capacitor, this circuit is called AC coupled, and what that means is that the DC at this node and the AC are coupled or sum only under only when the signal is AC. That means the DC from the signal source will not get transmitted to the input of the amplifier. The DC will get blocked because the capacitor will not allow the DC to pass. On the other hand, this circuit is called DC coupled in that there is no capacitor, so any signal DC or AC from the signal source will be connected or reach the base of the or the input of the amplifier. Now, of course, this, as we saw, this circuit does not work, but there are examples of DC coupling where the circuit does work, and here is an example. If we have a negative supply available, let us say a minus 12 volt, then we can DC couple the input to the base of the amplifier, or well, the input of the amplifier, and this will still continue to function. The transistor will still be in the active mode. So for example, if you want to analyze this circuit first for DC, what we'll do is we'll short this node to ground, because or let's put it another way, the average value of Vs, because if it's a sinusoid, is 0. So the DC value at this base node is 0. And if you analyze the DC, if this analyze the circuit only for DC, then if this is 0, this will be minus 0.7. And then if you have 11.3K, this voltage drop is 11.3 volts. So we'll get a 1 milliamp emitter current. So about 1 milliamp collector current. And the transistor will nicely stay in the active mode even when the input source is connected to the base. Also, incidentally, this circuit is naturally insensitive to variations in beta. It does not need R1, R2, because the emitter current is simply 11.3 volts by 11.3 kilo ohms, and it really does not depend on beta. So as long as beta is large, the emitter and collector currents are almost the same, and let beta do whatever it wants as long as it is large, and the collector current will stay about 1 milliamp. So this is the advantage of a circuit that has a negative supply. Of course, the disadvantage is that it needs two supplies, and not all electronic systems have the luxury of a large number of not a large number of electronic systems can have the luxury of two supplies, plus and minus. Many systems have only one supply, which is when one has to use R1, R2 and an AC coupling. All right. Okay, so that is the end of this lecture. We'll continue this next time.